You're listening to episode number 40 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On today's show, new favorites for new cooks. This is a cookbook filled with nourishing recipes, easy enough for your kids to make, and of course for your entire family to eat and to love. And the author of the cookbook is my new friend, Carolyn Federman. Carolyn is a pioneer in the kids' cooking space, and through her innovative Karp project, which we're going to talk about on the show, she is bringing home economics to schools and communities across the country. So, yep, home ec is hip, and it's happening again. So we're going to kind of dig into that on the show as well. You can join us for recipes like Carolyn's Pioneer pancakes and her mango cucumber salad. We're going to give you info on how you can bring one of her mobile kitchen classrooms to your child's school. And we're going to give you a chance to win a copy of New Favorites for New Cooks. So listen in today and then visit lizshealthytable.com/podcast and head on over to episode number 40 for the full recipes and then for instructions on how you can enter the giveaway. Liz's Healthy Table is brought to you by my friends at superhealthykids.com, your one-stop shop for recipes, meal plans, cooking videos, and tips for feeding kids of all ages. The show is also brought to you by the Parents on Demand Network. This is an app. You can download it to your phone. It's filled with a whole bunch of parenting podcasts, including mine, and also including shows like Pediacast with Dr. Mike. Now, this show has, I think he's up to, over 400 episodes. And Pediacast features interviews with pediatricians and parenting experts. I've been on the show. Dr. Mike is a friend. He's a colleague. He is a trusted resource. So be sure to tune in to Pediacast. You cannot believe he's pretty much hit up every parenting topic. And you can check out his show on parentsondemand.com. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. I'm sitting here holding your book in my hands, and I know we're going to have a lucky winner for your cookbook. We're giving one away, so really excited about that. But before we talk about the book, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you live? Kids? Give us just kind of a little bit of the backstory.
I live in sunny Berkeley, California, where we are blessed to have so much fresh, amazing produce to work with. And I am raising two fabulous teenage children.
Boys or girls?
A boy and a girl, one of each.
Okay. And you're in Berkeley, I believe, right?
That's correct.
I'm very jealous. I actually was there for a conference, out at the Culinary Institute of America a few months ago, a little more than a few months ago, and we had lunch, my friend and I, at Chez Panisse, Alice Waters' restaurant.
Lucky you.
I was very lucky, and I think you have worked with Alice Waters over the years, and Jamie Oliver, and Michael Pollan. I'm going to drop some names. Tell me a little bit about your journey in this whole sort of food and farming and nutrition and kids arena and how you kind of got started.
I've been lucky to work with all of those pioneers in the food world that you mentioned. I started working with Alice Waters about 20 years ago, and I ran her foundation, which at the time was called the Chez Panisse Foundation, and now it's called the Edible Schoolyard Project. A lot of people are familiar with Alice's educational program, the Edible Schoolyard, where kids come to a kitchen classroom as part of their academic day. So I drew a lot of inspiration from Alice. She's one of my mentors, and we work together still to this day. And I also worked with Jamie Oliver on some more policy-related work around food here in Los Angeles, trying to get chocolate milk out of the school lunchroom. And then I was really lucky to work with Michael Pollan for several years on a course at UC Berkeley called Edible Education.
Very cool. This trip, but another trip when I was in California, I went to the edible schoolyard. I kind of just cruised by. It was off season, so stuff wasn't growing. But I love what Alice Waters has done. I'm excited to hear what you've done. And did you study home ec or nutrition? What did you study when you were in college? Like, how did you get that gig?
I studied social cultural anthropology. And I was always very interested in food and how it represents culture, but mostly came to it as a fluke, to be perfectly honest. I had just moved to Berkeley, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to Alice Waters by a mutual friend, and she needed some help running an event. And I stepped in, and we hit it off, and that was really the beginning of a turning point in my life and career.
Very cool. You know, when I was growing up, I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and my mom was a home ec teacher. So she taught cooking to second graders. I think it was second graders in the 50s. And she was this home ec teacher. I remember having home ec when I was in elementary school. And I would love for schools across the country to bring it back, because I think kids need to know how to cook, how to sew a button, how to darn a sock. Why not, right? Like all these sort of daily skills that we are losing. So I kind of came to it through hanging out with my mom and cooking and this whole home ec thing. And I think it's really important for kids to learn how to cook. And obviously you and I, we agree on that one. And I know you have this program. It's a nonprofit. It is called the Charlie Project. So since I just mentioned home ec, I was hoping you could tell everybody a little bit about the Charlie Project. What is it, and why do you call it that?
Our nonprofit is called the Charlie Karp Project, and it was about 4 years ago out of inspiration from the Edible Schoolyard Project. So the idea is that kids would be able to learn hands-on about cooking and nutrition in school. And the Charlie Cart is a compact mobile kitchen that educators can just roll right into the classroom, and it's equipped with everything you need to get kids cooking right in the classroom.
My apologies for forgetting the word cart on that one. Of course, it's the Charlie Cart, because you've got this mobile cart. I think it also kind of has running water. You can connect it. I mean, it really is like a little mini kitchen, isn't it?
It is. It is mobile kitchen classroom, we like to say, on wheels. So it can roll into the cafeteria, the multipurpose room, from classroom to classroom. We see it used in libraries, children's museums, hospitals. It's found many a home.
And you've got a curriculum that goes with it. So it's not like you've just got this cart and it's like, all right, what do we do now? So you've got recipes and curriculum and all sorts of cool stuff, right?
That's right. And it's connected to math, science, and English language arts. And in addition to providing a curriculum and all the tools you need for cooking with up to 30 kids, we also provide training for educators to be able to maximize their use of the tools.
So if you wanted to bring the Charlie Cart into your school or your community, what's the website, and what would it cost a school to bring this in?
The website is charliecart.org. It costs $10,000. That includes shipping. It comes with a Vitamix, sink, running water, an induction cooktop, a convection oven, and lots of other cooking tools. And as you mentioned, it comes with the 54-lesson curriculum.
So it's kind of like the Easy Bake Oven, but on steroids.
That's a good way to put it.
And my Easy Bake Oven was a very important part of my childhood. I don't know about you, but that was a lot of hours using that Easy Bake Oven.
I had one too, and I loved it.
Yes, very good. So you've got this Charlie Karp program, and it's helping to teach kids about food and about nutrition. And why is it important to teach kids kind of where their food comes from and how to cook from your perspective? Because you've kind of been in the trenches for a long time. Why is it important to teach kids this? And is it just like, we're just kind of blah, blah, we're just saying it? Or is there really proof to the pudding here that it does make a huge impact on kids' lives and their health, right? So what backs all this up?
Well, there's two really important facets. Firstly, you see kids who don't thrive in a traditional classroom environment where cooking, a hands-on project like cooking, really levels the playing field. And we hear over and over from educators that when those kids shine, as they do in cooking, that the teachers are able to see them in a new way. And then their peers see them in a new way, and it can not only break a cycle of negativity for that child, but it can also then put them into a cycle of positivity. So it has tremendous value for self-esteem and all those critical skill building that, the social skill building that's so important outside of academics in school. Secondarily, and not less importantly, when children understand and have the tools to make healthy choices for themselves, they will do that. They need the skills first, and then they can make healthy choices for a lifetime. And those choices are reflected back in the health of the community and eventually the health of the planet. And we need that now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any sort of success stories? Is there a kid that you can remember, even from 20 years ago when you kind of first got into this, who maybe grew up to become a dietitian or to become a chef or to become a leader, like, in the food and nutrition movement? Like any stories like that you can share?
Well, there are definitely kids from the edible schoolyard who we saw go on to become chefs. But, I come from a crew of people who have raised fantastic eaters, and many of what we call the children of Chez Panisse have gone on to work in the food world. So I've seen it very directly and concretely affect an entire generation of kids in my peer group. And I think, we all have eyes mostly on our own children, and I can say that all of the little food tricks that I learned from Alice worked wonders on my own kids over the years. So I have a lot of concrete evidence that, feeding your kids well rubs off on them and they internalize it, and then they become good eaters in their own right.
Give me an example of a recipe that you would get if you had the Charlie cart come to your school, in this curriculum. What would be an example?
One example that we love to use in the trainings is a very simple mango and cucumber salad recipe. The reason that we are so fond of trying out this recipe with the educators is because cooking often has all this mystique around it, and it can be really intimidating. So with a mango, if you know how to cut a mango, you can make it look really beautiful and professional. And we teach people how to very simply cut a mango and pop it inside out so it is diced and perfect. And the teachers are always astounded that they could do this. They feel really proud of themselves, and I think it demystifies cooking quite a bit. So we use that for the adults, and we know that if it's going to be successful with adults, then it's going to be triply successful with the kids. So that's one of the recipes that comes with the Charlie cart.
Now, you have a book called New Favorites for New Cooks, and you do show people how to cut a mango in your book. And I'll take a picture of that and pop that into the show notes for people who are curious. But tell us a little bit about the book, because it's beautiful. It's not just a cookbook. So tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. I think it's beautiful too. I'm very proud of the book. The inspiration behind the book is to create something that offers kids sophisticated flavors, because kids really like sophisticated flavors, but doesn't intimidate them. So I took all of the recipes and I distributed them to kids in my community and in some cases in other cities. So every recipe is kid tested and approved. And I had these feedback sheets, and they would respond to me with, what was confusing, what was challenging, and then we would edit the recipe accordingly. So some recipes got cut, some got modified, and I was able to learn a lot about how kids think about food and then write all of that into the book. So the idea is to demystify cooking, allow kids to try new flavors and really not talk down to them.
What are some of your favorite recipes or even your kids' favorites in the book? I actually made your roasted potatoes. I was going to a friend's house for dinner, so I pulled the book out, and I know you've got these chocolate lava cakes in there. I'm dying over those. And a fried rice recipe. I mean, so many awesome recipes, but what are some of your family's favorites?
We make everything in the book is on regular rotation in our house. So this morning we made Pioneer pancakes for breakfast. We have those at least once a week. Right now the kids are on melty pesto panini kick. They bring those for their school lunch. And we've been making a lot of the mini meatballs with tomato sauce, which I love because young kids can make an entire dinner for their family and feel so proud of themselves. And it's really easy, and the meatballs only take 10 to 15 minutes to cook.
I was actually just looking at the meatball recipe, and I love meatballs. And I agree with you. They cook up. They're actually really easy to make. They cook up quickly. They can be very healthy if you use lean ground beef or turkey. So yeah, maybe I'll share that, take a picture of that recipe too and share it with folks. What else? So what about the desserts? What are some of your favorite desserts?
Well, of course, those lava cakes win the day because they only take 8 minutes to cook. This is what I love about the cookbook. Everything is very, very quick and easy. But the lava cakes, there's only a few ingredients. They're just no fail. If you overcook them, they're just a little bit more dense. If you undercook them, they're a little bit more gooey. You really just can't go wrong.
What about things like knife skills? Because you do show everybody in the book, how to hold a knife. Should parents be scared of their kids using a real knife? Like, at what age can they start to use a real knife?
That depends completely on the parents. Some parents write me that they've started their kids at 3 years old, and obviously that requires absolute parent supervision. But I think the important thing is that you know your kids better than anyone, so you know what they're ready for, that there's adequate parental supervision, and that you teach them from the beginning good knife skills, because then they're going to be safe. So, it doesn't matter what age you're starting, as long as you're teaching them how to hold it properly and all the behavioral expectations associated with using a knife, then they'll be safe. And, I do believe in using a real knife. I think what happens with things like lettuce knives is that kids don't learn really how to use a knife safely, because a lettuce knife is nothing like a real knife. And that can be more dangerous ultimately.
So how do you hold a knife? How would you describe to a parent who's teaching their kid how to properly use a knife? Like, talk about the claw, and how do you do that safely?
For young kids, some of the most important rules are how you hand a knife to someone. And it's like the scissors rule, that if you're moving around, you have it pointed down, or you're not crossing the kitchen with a knife held out straight, that if you want to pass it to me, you put it down on the table so that I can pick it up. You don't just hand it to me by the blade. So, those are really important rules. And then when you're teaching them how to use a knife, we do talk about the claw and saw, and it's less about how you're holding the knife and more about how you're protecting your fingertips that's holding the produce. So it is important to focus on holding the knife firmly and comfortably, but it's also really important to focus on how you're holding the produce. One thing that a lot of parents don't pay attention to is that produce is really wobbly. And so if you cut it in half for your child first, and the flat side is a cutting board, that piece of produce is going to be very stable and much easier for the child to handle.
That's really important. Even Brussels sprouts. You can cut Brussels sprouts into little ribbons, but you kind of have to cut it in half first, put the flat side down, then you could start slicing.
Exactly.
If you were a parent, you are a parent, let's say there's a parent listening who wants to do an after-school program with kids, or go into a classroom and do cooking, or even cook with their kids at home, what would be the first recipe in New Favorites for New Cooks that you might recommend?
When I went into the classroom, I always made salad. Salad is really fun and flexible. So you can do a winter salad, you can do a summer salad, you can do a spring salad. It allows you to throw in whatever produce is seasonal and available in your area. It also allows you to throw in something that's your favorite. If you love Parmesan cheese and you really want to, share that with the kids, you can slice some of that over the top. It's just easy to bring in a big variety. And it also provides lots of jobs for many kids around the table. So I think salad is a really easy one. And it's always surprising to me when I've been working in classrooms how many kids actually have never eaten lettuce, even here in Berkeley, California. It's kind of shocking.
Really?
So, yeah, I recommend salad. But even before looking into my book or the Charlie Karp project, I think the most important thing for a parent who's volunteering is they pick a recipe that they have some connection to, an emotional connection. Maybe it's religious, cultural. Then they can bring that learning with them, and that passion always translates really well to kids.
Do you have a favorite salad dressing, and would you have the kids do it in a little mason jar so they can shake it up?
Yeah, we have a mason jar vinaigrette lesson in the Charlie Karp curriculum. And it's great because it teaches kids about ratio. I just use a standard vinaigrette always. Vinegar, nice olive oil, salt, pepper. Sometimes I add a little mustard. And I have found over the years that kids find that irresistible.
I actually have garlic roasting in the oven right now. And I just turned the oven off and ran up because I'm interviewing you, but I'm making a salad, and it called for adding some roasted garlic. You kind of smash it up and add that to the dressing. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I bet it smells incredible.
It does smell. My house smells great right now, even though I do have a little cold, in case you're listening, people, and you're like, she doesn't sound like Liz today. So apologies. Got a little head cold, but hey, we're forging on here. It's October when this show goes live. So I thought I would ask you if you have a favorite pumpkin recipe. I'm obsessed with pumpkin. I tend to use a lot of canned pumpkin just because it's so convenient. But do you have a favorite recipe?
I'm a huge fan of pumpkin pie, but I'm going to set that aside for this question and say pumpkin soup. Any kind of squash soup is, for me, a go-to all winter long. And for kids, it's so simple. You just saute the onions, put a little chicken stock. If you're vegan, you can use water and a little more salt. And then you roast the pumpkin, throw it in there, and whir it all up in a blender. I mean, it just couldn't be easier.
So just roasted pumpkin, obviously without the skin. You've got onion, you've got some broth, and that's it.
That's it.
Easy. I like it. I actually am pretty obsessed with pumpkin pancakes. I make brownies, and I add some pumpkin puree to that. I've added pureed pumpkin to chili. I've added it to enchiladas. You can kind of add it into the enchilada sauce. So it could make its way into, sweet and savory. It's pretty versatile.
It's true. Wow, you're way more creative than I am.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So I know there's a lot of skeptics out there who think, oh, kids don't like vegetables. Kids are picky. Other than that salad tip, which I think was so great, any other advice to kind of ignite a child's love of vegetables?
Definitely, you need to serve it over and over. I always say parents are their kids' first and most important role model. So if you're eating vegetables, they're going to watch you. And if you put pressure on them, we all know that our kids react to that. So I say just eat what you love. Don't modify the dinner according to their pickiness. Keep serving those vegetables over and over and over. Studies say it takes 15 to 20 exposures for the kid to try it. So stay strong. You can do it. Try not to listen to their whining and complaining. And one other tip that worked really well for me is, and I learned this from Alice Waters when my kids were young. She said, when the kids are really hungry, try serving something that they might not have been willing to try before. So once we took our son when he was very young, maybe 3 years old, to dim sum, and the food was taking a really long time, and he was just melting down. And the first thing that came out of the kitchen was this sautéed bok choy. And I thought, he's just going to starve. There's no way he'll eat that. And he ate the entire plate of bok choy, and he has loved bok choy ever since. So I think there was a lot of merit to her tactic. And so when your kids come in from sports or other outdoor activities and they're really hungry, put some fresh peas on the table, put some carrots and cucumbers on the table, try all of the things that they wouldn't have tried before.
So if you were going to make bok choy, I know I just bought some baby bok choy the other day, but if you were going to make bok choy and kind of recreate that for your son years later, how would you make it?
Sautéed with garlic and ginger.
So would you slice it up then? Or just rip the leaves?
I just cut the bottom off, and I also use the baby bok choy, so I just cut the bottom off and leave the pieces whole with the leaf and the stalk. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in a hurry, I'll slice it smaller because it cooks so quickly, and maybe put a little water in the pan, or I'll use sometimes a little bit of sesame oil or olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic, and ginger. And I put the garlic in first, and then the ginger, and then the bok choy, and give it a quick sauté, 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to do that again because I have a farm near my house. It's called Wilson Farms. I'm very lucky to have it near me. And I've been seeing this baby bok choy. So I'm like, The other thing I've been doing a lot lately, and I don't know why, I guess, I'm not a gardener, I will admit that, but in the spring, early summer, radishes are always at the market, and now they're kind of popping up again. And I love to roast radishes. I just wash them. I slice the radishes in half, toss with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then I just roast them on a baking sheet at like 425 till they're really caramelized and tender. It's like 18 minutes. It's so good. Have you ever done that?
That sounds delicious. I'm going to try that.
You should try that. And I know on the cover of your book, you've got sweet potato fries. Since we're on a veggie conversation here, tell everybody, how would you make sweet potato fries so they're crispy? What is this recipe?
So this is my daughter's recipe. She decided that she wanted to go on a sweet potato fry kick, and she tried all these different ways to make them, and she would come home after school and make them for herself for a snack. So that is how the recipe made its way into the book. It couldn't be easier. Peel the sweet potato, cut it in half, slice it into small pieces, coat it in a little bit of olive oil, salt, and a little bit of paprika, and then throw it in a hot oven. And that's it.
Easy.
So easy.
And it gets crispy.
They do get crispy, yes. I mean, if you cut them thick, then they'll be more roasty and a little bit more tender on the inside. And if you cut them thinner, then they'll be crispier. So you can make them however you like them.
I just roasted up some delicata squash. I actually talked about it in a show I just did it was called Dinner Dilemma Solved. But I'm loving delicata squash now. And you just cut it in half lengthwise, scoop out the seeds, slice it into half moons, maybe a half inch, and then toss with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and just roast it. And then it's just like tender and yummy, and you could eat the skin. So it's one of the most convenient types of squash, just because you can eat the whole thing. And you could even roast the seeds, which I'm kind of lazy and I don't tend to do, but you definitely could do that.
Oh, delicata is one of my favorites. I make it for Thanksgiving every year. You can put all different kinds of spices. The same recipe that you just described, you can change it up with just different spice mixes like cumin and sumac, and put a little shallots, add some chopped shallots at the end. Yeah, my favorite. Love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So I want to get back to the Charlie Karp project because I forgot to ask you, how many schools or community centers in the country currently have the cart and have the curriculum? And then what's kind of your goals for the future?
We're in over 100 organizations now. So about 75 of those are schools, and the rest are libraries, hospitals, food banks, different kinds of community organizations. We're in 31 states, which is really exciting. And our goal for the future is to not just blanket the country with Charlie carts, but to deepen our engagement with the sites that we have and help them connect to one another and to help them increase the impact that they're having on the kids in their community.
Are most of these schools and centers, do most of them have a garden as well, some sort of school garden or community garden? Do you find that there's that connection?
Sometimes and sometimes not. A lot of the places that are really embracing this food education, Wyoming is a great example. We work with the State Department of Education in Wyoming, and they currently have something like 15 carts there. And they have a 6-week growing season, so it's really not possible for them to have school gardens. But they make all a really creative effort to increase farm-to-school programming in their state. And teaching kids about food and cooking hands-on is one way that they are able to do that.
And this is more for elementary schools, the Charlie cart?
The curriculum is geared to elementary schools, but we find that we're in universities, middle schools, high schools. We're at Princeton. We're at the USDA. I think the recipes appeal to all different ages, the same way that the book does. And so a skilled teacher can modify the curriculum really easily.
Yeah, and I know your book is designed for 8-year-olds and above, but I think your book is really ideal for anybody. Like, I'm an adult and I'm looking through it thinking, I want to make this, I want to make that, like those meatballs, the fried rice. So do you find that adults love it too?
I am getting great feedback from adults as well. Yes. I heard a great story from my sister that her neighbor said, my husband does all the cooking and I always feel intimidated in the kitchen. And I just bought your sister's book and I'm going to make dinner tonight. I'm going to make the chicken with green beans and potatoes.
Good. I love that.
Yeah.
I find, when I think about nutrition, so you've been in the trenches for a long time in this sort of nutrition education arena, and you've worked with these pioneers. When you look back and now you look to where we are today, what sorts of changes, just cultural changes, societal changes have you seen in this country when it comes to nutrition? Because I remember back in the day when people heard I was a dietitian, it would be like, oh, you're a nudnik, you're annoying, you're this. Now, of course, I'm very popular. So do you find that just people's love and interest in nutrition has grown thanks to all of these programs across country?
Absolutely. I love that you were a nudnik. And
I was.
You're not.
My friend Laura calls me the nutrition nudnik because years ago, this is a true story, she was visiting me. She lives in D.C. She's actually a travel writer. So Laura's visiting me, and I was picking up my son at elementary school, and he was kind of playing on the playground after school. And all of a sudden, you could hear the ice cream truck. You know how they always have like a jingle, a tune they play? And this guy pulls up in his ice cream truck, and I was so mad because all the kids left the playground where they were playing and exercising to run and get like this junky ice cream. It wasn't even like back in the day when I was a kid, you got like the little Dixie cup. This is just like artificial color. And I don't know. So she's like, I got so annoyed by this because the kids, start having a tantrum and they're bugging the parents. I'm like, oh my gosh, just leave us alone. So Laura dubbed me the nutrition nudnik. And the name has stuck, I will admit, because she was like, I can't believe how annoyed you are. I think it was sort of in the middle of when I was engaged with our school and trying to get the junk food out of the cafeteria and reform the school lunch program. So I was making strides in that. And then I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So anyway, nutrition nudnik. But back to the question, which is, what sorts of changes? And do you think that we've really come a long way?
Well, I think your story illustrates a lot, and I can relate to times when my kids were at preschool and people would call me the snack police. And today, imagine how those parents would welcome you with open arms to change the school meal program. So things have changed a lot and not a lot. We still have a long way to go. And I believe that the key to changing the food system is educating kids. So kids will bring the message home to their parents, and they are the future, and we need to teach them where we can reach them, which is school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always said that in schools, we strive to have the best math curriculum and the best English curriculum, and the food should reflect the best. So the food is really a teaching tool. And if you have fresh, beautiful, wholesome food that tastes great, then it's really like having the best science curriculum. It's the same thing, at least in my opinion.
Absolutely. And kids deserve the best, but so often we're not giving them the best, and we need to take another look at that.
Yep, could not agree more. So just to kind of wrap it up, Carolyn, back to your book, do you personally have a favorite? Is there a recipe in that book that you're like, this is it, it's my favorite, I love it, really kind of defines your style? Anything come to mind?
I have to say those Pioneer pancakes. I love them.
Tell us what's in them. What's in the Pioneer pancakes?
Well, it's buckwheat flour, and it tastes so good. It's completely different than a regular pancake, because after you have been eating Pioneer pancakes for a while, or buckwheat pancakes, you realize that regular pancakes made with all white flour taste kind of doughy. And buckwheat has such a subtle flavor, but you feel like you're actually eating food as opposed to just eating kind of fluff. And it really changes the way you taste a pancake. And they're just so delicious. And every time I eat them, I think, God, these are so good. Even this morning, my son, my 17-year-old teenage boy, said, these are so good, Mom.
Good for him. So eat food, not fluff. That can be your next book. Seriously, eat food, not fluff.
I love it.
Well, it's so nice when it all kind of comes full circle. Your son loves it. I know I was visiting Simon up at University of Vermont. He's a freshman up there. And we were up there over the weekend, and they have this most amazing farmers market in Burlington, Vermont. So if anyone's listening and you're from Burlington, I am so jealous. And so we went to the farmers market. Simon brought his backpack, and he says, I'm going to buy a bunch of food. He got raspberries, apples, pears, this thing of cheese. I mean, he was like all into it and brought it back to the dorm. And so I feel like I have taught him something, and it was really exciting to see how excited he was just to kind of taste things and try things as we went through the market.
You must be so proud of him.
I'm proud. And then there's Josh, who lives in New York City and tells me that he's going to make so much money one day, he'll never have to cook, and he will hire people to cook for him. So I failed him somehow. He never got into it. He'll eat whatever I put in front of him, but I don't think he has that same passion that I see in the younger one. But hey, we do the best we can, right?
As long as he eats well and healthily, no failure there.
Especially when he's with me. I don't know what he's doing on his own, but hey, we can only lay the foundation.
That's right.
Carolyn, anything else you want to share that we haven't touched on, just about your book, about the Charlie Karp project? Oh, and I know, and while you're thinking about that, I want people to know where to follow you on social media. So I want to make sure you share that as well.
So you can find us at charliecart.org and at @GoCharlieCart on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I just wanted to thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to talk to a like-minded mother and nutrition expert. And for all of you listeners out there, I hope you will go forth and try something new in the kitchen.
Well, good stuff. And next time I'm in Berkeley, can we meet for lunch?
Absolutely. Let's go to Chez Panisse.
Let's do it. Hey, it's who you know, right? I'm sure you'll get us a lovely table. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn, so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. It's been my pleasure.
And to all of my listeners, do not forget to go to the show notes page from today's show to enter for a chance to win new favorites for new cooks, U.S. only, please. And if you love the show, share it with a friend, post a review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Head on over to lizshealthytable.com. And until next time, thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.